This is TWiT.
I read an article, I wish I could find it, I don't know where it is, that posited that really the most powerful person in the world right now is Mark Zuckerberg. If Mark Zuckerberg, given his absolute control of Facebook, the board of directors can't say boo, nobody else can say boo, I doubt Sheryl Sandberg can say, Mark, you got to knock it off. So with his 60% voting shares, he's completely dominant. And if he decided, I don't like this candidate or I don't like this policy, it would not be hard for him to modify, to tweak the algorithm in such a way that he could get somebody elected. Do you not agree? Do you not think that's possible? Is there any check on his power at all?
There is none, right? No, that's the ultimate question. And what's funny is that, I don't know, you posit this question, Leo, even though we keep learning things like Facebook's algorithm keeps biasing towards conservatives, even though they're the ones complaining that tech is erasing them. So I don't know who Mark Zuckerberg is really answering to. It seems like the people who shout loudest to me is the people he'll try to appease.
We can speculate that Mark's going to do what'll make him the most money, and that right now he's got his finger to the wind and he says, you know what, I better make sure conservatives get an outsized voice on Facebook because I don't want the White House shutting us down. Look what he's doing at TikTok. So you might speculate that, but we don't know. And we literally, the FTC, Congress, no one can stop this guy at this point. Do you think?
And it is ironic. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, I mean, I just think it's ironic that here we are, Silicon Valley, a very, very blue area. I suspect, I don't know what Mark's politics are, but I suspect they're liberal. And I know Sheryl's are. I know Sheryl worked with the Democratic Party. Yet they are playing very much into the hands of the conservatives.
Well, look who they hired for their news operation, Campbell Brown, who was absolutely conservative. Right?
Yet, at the same time, the conservatives are beating up on them constantly and claiming that they're rigging the election against the conservatives. So it's a weird, I feel like Alice in Wonderland trying to understand this stuff.
Yeah, I will say, I think our idea is that tech is kind of liberal and very democratic, but honestly, from my experience, it's more libertarian, like more the people who are in the middle who are trying to say, oh, we just want fairness. We want the market to be fair. We want certain things to be fair. So they're not necessarily the ones fighting for things like human rights or diversity or equality or equal pay or gender, equality or anything like that.
I'm not even asserting that Mark's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying there is nothing to stop him from doing so, and we don't know what he's doing, and there is literally nothing that can stop him. And I'll give you
his own employees. His own employees is basically the only thing, I think, and it seems like some of the reporting, at least from the Times, has suggested that he's getting it from those employees quite a bit. But in the stand-ups or whatever, the full company meetings or whatever they're doing. But even that, I mean, you got to have real guts to do that, right? To stand up to him and give him a hard time. So that's pretty unlikely that he'd be stopped by his own employees.
It is true, though, that every Silicon Valley company is somewhat at the mercy of its engineers, because engineering talent is unique. It's hard to get. You spend a lot of energy finding these people. It's not an infinite supply, especially with H-1B visas being cut back. And so I know Google for sure listens to activists within Google because they can't afford to piss them off. I don't know if it's the case in Facebook. We certainly have heard about people. And so I just want to be clear. I'm not saying Mark's liberal or conservative or Mark's leaning one way or the other. I'm just saying we don't know, and there's no way of I don't know of a good way to stop him. Maybe it is just the employees. That's a very thin blue line. It's a light blue.
To me, it's sort of like Zuckerberg has always styled himself after Bill Gates, and especially 90s Bill Gates, the Bill Gates that would go out there,
the cutthroat,
destroy small companies. Yeah, the cutthroat Bill Gates, the guy from what was it, Pirates of Silicon Valley, that movie. Which I love. It's a fun movie. But yeah, the guy who would blow away small competitors, copy everybody, just be ruthless, do what it is. He's still doing it with TikTok and being hilariously bad at bringing TikTok features into Instagram. But I'm still waiting for the Mark Zuckerberg who kind of evolves the way Bill Gates did as a humanitarian, as somebody who actually reads books and thinks deeply about how to help people and society's issues as a whole. And I think that would be something that would help for Zuckerberg. But yeah, there's nobody to tell him no at this point. It's terrifying.
And one of the problems with Facebook is how the algorithms really encourage people to remain in their little cocoon. So I'm quite sure that my Facebook feed looks dramatically different than a Trump supporter's Facebook feed. I mean, they're going to see over and over and again, Trump, 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 positive, positive, positive. My feed looks like a Democratic coalition meeting, or even further to the left.
It's confirmation bias.
My community.
It's confirmation bias embodied by the algorithm, saying, "Hey, you're going to be happier if you see stuff you agree with. So let's feed it to you."
And the scariest thing is this is being weaponized now in the case of like QAnon stuff, right? Like that's some of the stuff that's been really wild to see. Is
now Facebook's pulling down they say they're pulling down QAnon groups and they're blocking QAnon posts.
But it's a little like I don't know. It feels like a little bit too little, too late, right? Like so many.
I think you could easily make the argument that QAnon. Look, Americans, probably humans, have loved conspiracy theories for as long as we've been around.
Sure. Yeah.
Then they've spread like wildfire wherever possible. But Facebook made it possible in a dramatically more effective way with a much larger potential audience. And I think you could clearly make the case that QAnon wouldn't be the conspiracy theory it is today without Facebook.
Absolutely. And they like all of these. And the scary thing, I think, is that the way that so many of these groups function as they're being weaponized by astroturfing organizations and people who want to fund some of the stuff that's kind of scary, at least to me, scary and terrifying when it comes to things like anti-vaccine groups and things like that is they really they've figured out how to do it. They've really figured out how to game the system, how to bring people in,
and you
connect
know what, Ben?
people to other groups that are similar.
It wasn't that hard.
It's true. It's true.
It almost does it by itself.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think you could probably make the case that Mark has done nothing. He's an engineer, very smart guy. He's probably done nothing than optimize for engagement and profit. That's all it took.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But that, by the way, was the startup philosophy for the past 10 years. For the time I've been covering startups and hypergrowth and everybody who wants to, build at all costs and move fast and break things, which was their, Zuck's philosophy for a while. He moved so fast he broke democracy. We are dealing with that right now.
And I think you could argue that Facebook's the best at it because Mark's so smart and he's hired very smart people and they did a great job. They did a better job than anybody else in Silicon Valley. Well done. This is the article. It was on 10, which is a Medium blog from Jumana Abu Ghazala. The unelected monarch is shaping our public life. His name is Mark Zuckerberg. The most important election of this year has only, this is the subhead's even more important. The most important election this year has only one voter. And then it's this guy, and this is, of course, about the most unflattering picture I've ever seen of Mark. Red-rimmed, robotic eyes with
Where are the flattering ones? I don't think I've ever seen those.
He's got the soulless gaze of a great white shark bearing down on you. Yeah, I know. This is his test.
He looks pretty good in a T-shirt.
Maybe it's the tie, you think?
Tie doesn't help.
And Jumana starts, she's the founder of Pivot for Humanity, a nonprofit on a mission to professionalize Silicon Valley. I don't know who he or she is, but but the lead is pretty. If it's not the single most powerful individual position in the world, it only has a few rivals. Think General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, or the Pope, or Chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve, maybe the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. It's a position that's been embroiled in a contentious conversation for years now about the scope and possibly criminal misuse of the current incumbent's power, the ability to encourage wars between nuclear powers, to rally or slow down global markets, to end or initiate horrifying human rights crises around the world. But I'm not talking about a presidency. We get to elect the president. I'm talking about the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. And I have to say I agree 100%. And we don't really address this. We're talking about Trump banning TikTok, and is the Chinese government a threat? Is TikTok a tool of the Chinese government? Is it spying on us? Whoa. That's, I think, de minimis compared to what the threat that Facebook right in our own backyard poses.
The call's coming from inside the house.
It's from inside the house. I love it.
Yeah.
And that's a fundamental change, right, from 2016, right? That's a fundamental change as we understand how these platforms are impacting some of the biggest, at least electoral decisions, right? Like 2016,
I think you can also,
the story was outside influence.
Well, but I think you could say that one of the true success stories of the Trump campaign in 2016 was its use of Facebook. Its brilliant use of Facebook.
Yeah. And Facebook ads. And Facebook actively courted them to buy ads. Like
Facebook had embedded people in the Trump campaign to help them do a better job buying ads. Of course, that's in their business interest. It'll be interesting to see what happens in 2020. Somebody asked me on Twig, we were talking about this. If you were at a dinner party with Zuck, what would you, if you would tell him to do one thing and he would do it, what would you do? And I'd say, well, not have any political ads. But that's not a perfect solution either.
That's a small piece of it. Yeah, at the risk of defending King Mark, it is a double-edged sword because there's also a lot of progressive activism, like the women's marches and the anti-gun activities and a lot of positive things that are also happening on Facebook. So again, if you look at my feed, you're going to see a lot of positivity, at least in terms of how I look at the world. And that's true with a lot of people. And certainly there have been some good things that have come out of Facebook. So the question is, how do you throw away the baby with the bath? How can you clean this up and at the same time not take away a tool that progressives are able to use to, from where I sit, make the world a better place?
Absolutely. And you make the same case with Twitter, that it's been used by Black Lives Matter and the Arab Spring and many activists to finally get a voice. If it weren't for Facebook, we may never have seen the video of George Floyd being murdered. That started on Facebook. So, no, you can absolutely make that case. I just worry that we're giving, well, we don't have a choice, that Mark has been given such power, and we don't control him in any way. And I do think this is the beginning of, you've read science fiction, you know that in 100 years, corporations will run the world. That's obvious. In
100 years?
I think it might be happening right now.
It's happening. Like, this is everything Facebook is building and all the major tech platforms. It's freaking Brave New World. It is the dump of information that people want, but is also controlling them. Like it's not 1984, right? It's the thing where people are controlled by the things they're addicted to, but they keep wanting it. It's not like it's a dictator over them.
It's actually Brave New World. It's Soma.
Yeah.
It's the drug that we know is making us stupid, but we're doing it anyway because it feels pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good stuff. And as the world gets more dystopian, what do you do when the world gets more dystopian? You take more Soma.